good evening, everybody. Gary Redmond here. Welcome, greetings, and salutations to episode 84 of New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. And we had to delay things last week because of some technical difficulties, but we're here, we're live, and of course, naturally, we are here for you. So we got a great show coming up tonight. Of course, we're expecting, we're going to talk about the epic win over DC United with the Red Bulls, a 1-0 victory. And of course, there's a streak going on right now with Troy Lesesne. We're also going to get you set up for the Inter Miami summer blockbuster that's going to take place on Saturday night. Hopefully, Mr. Messi will make his appearance, but we're hearing that he may not be. More on that details as we get off of the show. Of course, we have a special guest coming up tonight, the one and only Anthony Merced of Red Bull New York, UK. Of course, our guys in the British branch. Of course, he's going to come stop by and drop all serious knowledge, of course, of everything in the Red Bull continuity. And there might be some things that you may not know that he's going to let you guys in before the show is over. And of course, naturally, final thoughts, predictions of Gotham FC, and of course, New York Red Bulls 2. Speaking of, New York Red Bulls 2 is right now facing Atlanta United 2, live, of course, at MSU Soccer Park, and they're doing quite well there. Of course, we're going to talk about one particular player who should be on the very first team because he's been basically averaging a goal a game. This dude is red hot. We're talking about Ibrahim Kasule. And of course, naturally, if you happen to miss the show, this is the live show that's going on right now. Don't even sweat about it. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel and Spotify.com the very next day. Okay, you can also check out our previous episodes there as well. So after this show is done and dusted, the very next morning with sunrise, you're going to see this particular episode up there for everyone to see. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, hot takes, suggestions, remember, this is your show. This, we did this, of course, for you and your benefit. But if you want to make it a little better for every episode, which is our overall aim, feel free to send them our way at our email address, which is NYRBDG, the podcast at gmail.com. So lots and lots and lots, of course, to talk about before we even get there. Of course, I'm going to bring in, of course, my co-host, Carlos Cano, of course, is on assignment. Lanre Badmus, of course, is having a death in the family. Our condolences. And, of course, Mark, of course, is also on assignment. He's currently sitting at MSU right now watching the match for everyone everyone, and he'll be reporting in if anything is newsworthy. Right now, they got a 3-1 lead. But let's, as they say, start things, before we go, Miguel. The match itself, okay, we knew that this was going to be something that, well, how do you want to put it? Not safe for work, but this was not safe for soccer.
Oh my God, Gary. I don't know what to say. I mean, everybody in our group spoke about it, but it was just painful to watch, Gary. Painful to watch.
Let's see. I mean, they haven't. Okay, I'm not making any excuses here. I'm not even going to begin to do that. Right? These guys haven't played really competitive soccer in a while, but they were in a tournament, okay, for about a bit. So give it take.
So, it hasn't been a while because they lost to Philadelphia when, last week or something.
Last week. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be, a case where MLS games are a little bit more tougher than a makeshift tournament that was created for, well, in this case, one particular team. Well, congratulations to Inter Miami getting a trophy that looked like two fruit bowls super glued together. But I digress. A trophy is a trophy, and they won it. So that's the end of that. For the Red Bulls, once again, it was one of those matches where people can literally fall asleep. Good crowd, though. Okay, almost 18K. And they were up there. They were loud. I mean, it's a derby game. Of course, naturally, we are talking about DC United. However, one can argue that you would be it would be hard pressed not to fall asleep during the first 87 minutes. Because there was not much there. I mean, it was ugly soccer. Folks was just, it just wasn't there. I mean, whatever the urgency and everything else, and most it was sleepwalking their way through it. And then, of course, Van Zier had to do exit stage right after his leg got stomped on and introduced Tom Barlow. Now, for the very first time since I've been around, that's been an audible boo coming from the stands, wondering what Barlow comes in, and it just didn't look good, partner. It didn't look good at all. It just your thoughts on this, man. I mean, but a win is a win, right? Miguel, you there?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll take the win any time, but yeah, I'm here. Hello?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Yeah, we had a dark moment. Yeah, with a silent moment for a second.
So,
but but
a win is a win. I'll take the win.
But
yeah,
I feel that there's a butt coming. There's your world famous butt coming. No.
It was listen, Gary. It was two dreadful teams playing each other. I thought it was going to end in a 0-0. Okay, as they say in English.
And everybody in the building.
A 1-1 here, okay? But 0-0 here. But lucky for us, John Tolkien took a nice free kick and he stuck it in, okay? But it doesn't change the fact that a lot of our guys, the suck was showing so much, Gary, okay? Yeah. I mean, I can't
I wish I could disagree with you there, but I can't. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, this is something that I was dreading for quite some time. And one of the reasons were that when you're, for once, I was happy that, this team is really hard to figure out. Okay. Where if Inter Miami, I'm thinking you're going to see a much more spirited performance, but DC United, whatever you want to call it, is a terrible team, and you're playing down to their level. That's one hell of a concern. And once again, we see that. And it almost is painful to watch, where that the team that you're supporting is marginally better than the team that you're facing, and it's almost like you're handing them points. And that's not a very good feeling, and sometimes it just annoys me a little bit. And it was this, the quality wasn't there, but what a finish. Speaking of which, let's go over that one goal, and it was courtesy of JMI.
Good suspect. Was there enough of an angle if Tolkien's going to take it left footer, be able to squeak it in?
It's Tolkien round the wall, and he scores his first goal of the season. A huge goal for the Red Bulls. The breakthrough comes late in the game.
Much for him to hit at as he squeaks it into the corner. The angle's not in his favor. We get a great shot here. This Miller, he's depending on his wall. And he's upset at it, that the wall doesn't do their job. But Miller, he's across there. And he almost jumps under it. He doesn't read the bounce well. Just squeaks it around the wall. He's got enough whip on it.
All right. Now, of course, naturally, that was a huge win. Regardless however it ended in one. First of all, you knocked out your bitter rival. Two, you took a nicer, closer step, of course, to that playoff line. And of course, naturally, the final score was Red Bulls 1, DC United win. It was a little bit of a conflict that we didn't know if it was in the 88th minute, but in the 87th minute, it was official. John Tolkien with the only goal. Now, Tolkien's goal was his first of the season, his fourth of his career across all competitions. The goal was his second of his career against DC United. They're getting sick of him. Now, Tolkien became the fourth Red Bull player this season to score a game-winning goal, Miguel, after the 75th minute. The other three, Dante Van Zier, Omir Fernandez, and Wiki Carmona. Goalkeeper Carlos Cornell. He's recording clean sheets now. That's his 7th of the season, puts him in a tie for 5th most in the league. He also recorded his 27th career shutout with the Red Bulls, which ranks him 2nd all-time in franchise history. And oh, by the way, he's now tallied 35 wins in his career, and he's just 3 away from passing Tim Howard for 3rd in franchise history. Now, one little thing here. Red Bulls head coach Troy Lesane, if it means anything for anybody else, has posted a 4-0-1 record against club rivals NYCFC, DC United twice, but of course losing to Philadelphia Union last about a week ago, of course, in the Leagues Cup, in the Leagues Cup Championship. So this was something that we can celebrate now, but overall, there's a hint of concern among the fan base over basically the quality of play. Is it going to, match or meet or, exceed the next opponent coming in, which is Inter Miami. And they just finished, polishing off Nashville, and Nashville gave it a go. They really did give it a go, and tied 1-1. Of course, it went into penalty kicks like we've seen throughout the entire tournament, and of course they walk away with the trophy after outscoring them in penalty kicks. But your thoughts on this, Miguel? We've said that this team on paper, was talented to make the playoffs, but in your definition, is this a playoff team?
No, it's not. It's not a playoff team. We as fans would be lucky for our team to make the playoffs, but it would be dreadful for fans of actual football if this team made the playoffs, Garry. Let me tell you right now.
Okay,
but
explain that. Go ahead. Explain that for everyone in the live audience.
Because the quality of play is such garbage. Okay, that it reminds me. I was going to compare this team to Chelsea under Mourinho. Okay, but that would be a disservice because they actually had talented players.
Right, I was about to say you're going to go that far.
Sorry, Lon Ray. Okay, but you know what? Chelsea won.
Yeah,
playing like the crappiest or not pleasing on the eye football. Okay, but these guys are playing just that, not pleasing on the eye. But when they get their chances in front of goal, they can't hit it. They can't hit the side of a barn, man. Okay, and how long is Van Zier going to be out now? He's our best guy. Can you imagine that?
We're hearing day by day they're going to check on him within a day or two. The coach, we talked to him after the game in the post game. He didn't see anything serious, but just enough to just knock him out. He got stomped on the leg, by one of the DC United players. So he didn't see anything serious, but they took him out for precaution because he's often injured. I mean, I'm sure folks are going to label, slap the bust tag on him, but I don't think he's there yet. It's almost like a series of cameo appearances with this guy, but I like his attitude. We've spoken with him lots of times. He wants to get out there. He wants to get in the mix. I mean, he's one of those guys that once he gets going, he can start putting, banging in some goals. Problem is he doesn't stay on the field too long, to be very effective. Also adding to the point, we have Lewis Morgan, who's out now, at a time when this team really needs him. He had an appearance, for a penalty kick against Philadelphia, and that was the last we've seen him. So folks are really getting on Troy over that, wondering why in the world would you, knowing that we need him down for the stretch run, you put him in for that. We need only to blow a penalty kick. He's one of the best, kick takers in the league, but he was on the field, Miguel, versus Philadelphia for about 35 seconds.
Garry, that was one of the worst coaching decisions in MLS history, Garry.
I'm like,
you can't bring a guy in, hasn't got a touch, and you're bringing him to take a penalty kick. Come on.
No, I mean It really does. Now it becomes, of course, you can bring in understudies, and Vincent Escobar has a comment right off the bat. Nobody can score in this gun, and they signed the guy from Watford on loan, who's now got about 10 games. That's it. After last night, there's just 10 games in the schedule. He's not here. From what we're understanding, there's some paperwork involved, Vincent, and that's holding up. Things right now. But he hasn't arrived as of yet. As you know, once the paperwork is cleared, he's on the very next plane here. Hopefully, he can able to eat. And even if that, I don't think you're probably going to see him until probably about 5 or 4 games left. To be honest,
Now let me ask you something, Garry.
This is a concern for many fans, and the question is, Dennis Hamlet and of course, and Mr. Schneider. I mean, what's the deal with those two? They were brought here to work together and try to improve this team, and yet I don't see very much improvement. Injury bugs aside, okay, we were supposed to see a better team, and we're not getting it. Say you're the owner, GM at this point, Miguel. They stay next year or they go?
Well, you can't throw out everybody, but you got to bring in some quality to replace some of these guys, But some, like you can't change half the team from one year to another and expect to make the playoffs, because that's, I don't think that would happen, Like, look at Miami, Inter Miami. We were just having a discussion, and if they went on a run right now and won every game, like most likely they're still not going to make the playoffs.
No, that's how far back they are. They're not going to make it, even if they run the table. But for everybody else that's closer to that line, they're almost in a one and done situation. That includes the Red Bulls. Okay,
which is a crime to humanity, Garry, because everybody wants to see Leo Messi.
Well, the folks at Madison Avenue do, and I'm not talking about Major League Soccer headquarters, which is on Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the big stores and everything else. The advertising guys. They definitely want to see Messi in the playoffs, because that generates advertising dollars and sales and blah blah blah. And then we'll be seeing even more pink jerseys that I have already seen already. And I work in Midtown, so every other person I'm running into is wearing either a black or a pink jersey with the word Messi in the back. So he's definitely,
that's what happens when you sign somebody like that, Garry.
That's what happens when you sign one of the best ballers in the planet. Okay,
No.
It's like the Knicks signing Michael Jordan.
No,
okay.
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the best that has ever played basketball ever.
Right. That's like
Leo Messi,
which never happened. Okay, he almost wound up in Portland, but that's another story for another day. But that's like the Knicks signing Portland. Okay, all of a sudden you're not a Knicks fan, you're a Michael Jordan fan, and so that's what you're seeing right now. Folks were fans of Messi before they ever were involved with even Barcelona, or even PSG. Paris Saint-Germain. They were fans of that player before they were playing of the clubs. They can't remember or know all the other players that were on those clubs. So by the way, they were never scrubs. But it's just Lionel Messi. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's all. And in so many cases, that's all you need. I'm not angry of the fact that you sign, the league went it out of their way and shoehorned a deal to get him signed. But kudos to what's his name? Mas. I forgot his first name.
Jorge Mas.
Yeah. Kudos to him. He was the one that showed initiative and tried to get a deal done. And work with David Beckham.
Mr. Beckham as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that they got it done somehow. Which
did you see Beckham and Posh Spice there on the field hugging each other and crying?
Oh yeah.
they were feeling it, man.
Yeah, they were feeling it because that's his dream. He always wanted to own. He always wanted to own the club. Not so sure if he wanted to do something in England because it would have, if something went wrong, they would have crucified him and her. But here in America, we don't hang people by the entrails if after a loss. We just ignore you and stuff like that. But
Garry,
they're living the dream. They're living. I can't fault them. They're living the dream.
Garry,
okay.
I got to tell you, there was that awesome post that I read today. It was on in reply to Mr. Fishkin's post of, you got to support these guys. Now is the time to support these guys no matter what,
Well, he's right, though. Hold
no,
on.
he's fine. No, he's right.
He's right.
But I forget who it was answered and just laid it down. Post of the year, Garry. Post of the year. I wish you would.
I'll bring it up.
That. Okay, please bring it up. Yeah. And one of the things that guy mentioned was that there's no promotion relegation here, so they could care less about putting a good team together to win anything.
He's referring to the ownership, and he's dead right there.
And when you don't care about winning, okay, this is what you get, okay. So we are in limbo. He put it that way as well. Pretty much until this ownership decides to leave and maybe somebody else takes over, And I'm going to put it to you this way. I think we were talking to somebody. We were talking amongst ourselves earlier this month, and somebody brought up that the league might have given the Red Bulls and NYCFC a little bit of an out, like something about if they signed Messi, okay?
No,
they were trying to get.
I remember
they were chopping Messi around. The Red Bulls passed, and NYCFC passed. However, one of the things was like, if you sign him, you could move the team somewhere else to like Las Vegas, And I don't know if that might be I don't know if that might be the best option as far as we're concerned, because I tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
They could take this franchise and move it somewhere, then someone else can buy the franchise rights for this area, okay, and then we can start fresh, anew, as they say. But
another
that's just
reboot.
That's just me thinking at the top of my head.
I know you're right. But the post that you're referring to, Miggy, it came from one of our members, Matthew Joseph.
Dude, that guy hit it like out of the ballpark.
Allow me to read it. He said, "Yes, Mark, this is a realistic take, but many are tired of the same message every year at this point in the season, in the past half decade, with no movement in the positive direction." He's right. The league has never been more exciting to watch, and we're just floundering, which is a crime in itself. Forget winning a cup. This is a pipe dream. But now we can't even watch a fun competitive soccer game consistently. I really do feel that most ask for the bare minimum, and the team can't even deliver on that. Even writing this out, my immediate feelings of apathy and painful and self-awareness has been typed out 10,000 times before. It just sucks because for many, this team is a passion, but seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel, any matter and interest, and it reaches new lows quickly. A quirky and esoteric club was purchased by a multinational conglomeration, and it was the worst of all outcomes. We simultaneously stuck in limbo. Well, never mind the fact that it was owned by a conglomerate. No longer a club with an identity. The Metro Stars were losers, but they had an identity, brand, and name recognition. Did they? I'm not so sure about the third part. Now many won't cheer for an energy drink. We're no longer the lovable losers or local. No promotion or relegation, so the multinational conglomerate doesn't have to worry about going down. True. The draft doesn't matter in this sport because being shite, S-H-I-T-E, doesn't have the benefit of does in other sports. There is no rebuild. No, that's why you have an academy system. That's why you build from within. The conglomerate has so much money from other ventures that they can sustain an infinite amount of loss to his team just to keep him alive as a piece of the portfolio. There's actually no metric where the team will ever be forced to ambitious or sell. 0 people come to the game, that's fine. They don't make any money off tickets. Nobody buys jerseys, that's fine too. Even the richest man alive eventually has to cut ties with a losing product if you can't revive it. But Red Bull doesn't have to worry about that. It's almost fail-proof. One F1 race is enough to found our poverty club for a decade. There was a potential for the sport in this area, and it feels like we got the bad pick of the straws. We only got the billionaires in the store that want to win, fill the stadium, spend their money, cut their losses. Red Bull will exist in limbo in Harrison forever. Here's the thing, Miguel, and I'm just going to say this, and I'm just going to be nice about it. Part of it, most of it, he's right about. Okay, and then we're going to discuss this, of course, with Anthony Merced after the break. The other part, I'm not so sure, and the reason for it is I have history on my side, and I've been following this team since '95. Okay, this was like day one. You and I have been following this team since back in the day. Yeah. We've seen a lot of comedy shows in the previous owners during the Metro Stars days. So I don't think a lot of folks, were too thrilled at having a team that lost all the time. True story. I used to come to Giant Stadium, walking through commuters and homeless people and everything else just to get to the games, and almost get into a fight with some guy because we accidentally got on the wrong bus. Long story for that. I'll tell you about that later. But I used to roll with a crew 30 deep, to matches at Giant Stadium. Now, I'm the only one. I'm the only one left. And many of those guys moved on because they got tired of seeing bad soccer in a league that was laughable. These guys would follow leagues all over the world, and it's like, okay, we finally have a local team of our own. But when that local team is not even impressive enough to even beat a team out in Prospect Park one day, no. Okay, we had our good moments. We mostly had our bad moments. I'm not saying that Red Bull is a better owner than any of the previous two. Far from it. But let's not act like Metro Stars were some sort of juggernaut. They weren't. Okay.
No. Listen, Garry, I was there through all of it.
Yeah, I know you were. I mean,
there are fans of the Metro Stars, right, who have this like like when you say like, oh, the fifth, like older people say the 50s were so great, okay, right. But in reality there were not to a lot of people, okay. No. But this is the way a lot of like old school Metro fans think, okay.
Of course.
However, I think they were never the ownership groups that owned the Metro Stars. After Metro Media, I think AEG owned them for a while.
AEG didn't care.
Yeah, but yeah, they were like a placeholder.
AEG didn't allow them to spend jack.
Okay. It was like a placeholder ownership group, and then they handed it off to Red Bulls, which was the worst thing that could have happened. Okay, I didn't think so at the time. Okay, but look where we are now.
It was definitely a culture shock. I'm not gonna lie to you.
But at the time I said, this is great, though. These guys are going to put some money in. Like the Metro Stars sucked, but maybe now we can get something.
A lot of folks. Here's the thing. To your point. Not to cut you off, but to your point. A lot of folks like me, when we heard that Red Bull was going to take over, we thought that they was going to keep the Metro Stars name. They didn't. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes they've made from day one was just simply astroturfed everything Metro. That killed it. That just gave everyone else to throw up their hands and say, you just killed my club. Screw it. I'm out. And I don't blame them. They haven't been back since. Okay. Sure, we got our own nice little home, but it's in a place where it's even harder to get to than Giant Stadium. And that's with the path, which on a good day, it doesn't bring a lot of fans. I mean, You're waiting 45 minutes or more for the next train. But more on that later. I mean,
I'd make it to like in 15 minutes at Giant Stadium from my house, But
and that's just it. Yeah. From anywhere you are, it was, if you're driving a car, you're in 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour. People from New York, maybe give or take about 30, 45 minutes, but you get there. Okay.
Plenty of parking.
Plenty of parking. I mean, and tailgating, tailgating as far as the eye can see. And and I loved it. And I loved it. This is how,
like the issue
a lot of that tradition still carries over today, where people are out there in the parking lot and they're out there, out there in the parking lot, and they're, they're drinking beer and everything else and getting together and having their music, and then they off to the stadium, to go. Past that point, it's all about the team. And I almost hate to say this, and Anthony's going to bring this up. You have fans who are there for the sport. You know this, Miguel. You know this for well. And unfortunately, there are sports fans who just want to be entertained. And those guys are staying away in droves. They're not coming here. They're not spending their money here. They're not even bringing their kids, their family, their boss. No. That's when we had Thierry Henry. That's when we had Cahill. That's when we had Marquez. Arguably the most hated Mexican player of all time, actually on our roster. However, what did we have for everybody else? We had 3 superstar players, but we had a bunch of second story guys, ham and eggers, and kids.
That's another story. That's another thing, Gary, because a lot of people will bring that up. Oh, they tried it with this guy. They just didn't know how to put together a good team, okay? Because you know what? You need to have other guys who can play football, Gary, okay? That's what happens with other teams throughout the league. There's teams that play actual football and not a system, okay? You need some, like even now, our team is just devoid of any creative play, okay?
I won't even go so far to say they play under a system right now. They're just balling. That's just all they're doing.
I'm saying, you know what? It's all about press, and then get him on the break. Like all of a sudden, you have the ball in their end. That's what this is all about.
Yeah. Okay. One of the ways to beat this team is either you bunker, which this team doesn't know how to break, or long ball after long ball after long ball.
This is another issue, like why I would pray that this ownership group goes by the wayside, because they're just going to stick to that. They're going to stick to the system. I was thinking of this, the Columbus Crew who won the MLS Cup recently. They did it by playing football. Derek Etienne was like one of their main guys, and he was great. He wasn't so great here because you had to play the system.
Not necessarily. He didn't start all this. One of the things he wanted, spoke to his father. One of the things he wanted to do was start. They didn't give him starting role.
But he was actually playing football over there. Yeah. And that team played football. They won MLS.
Many of our players, many of the players who play for the Red Bulls have flourished in other teams. 2 guesses why. Okay, 2 guesses why. They're allowed to play soccer.
They can play football. I mean, Garry.
Guys used to yell, wheel. Okay, they harped on him all the time that he couldn't ball, but he's balling out national.
I saw him and Jason Davis and Dax McCarty in the field.
They're having fun.
The other day. It's too bad that they were on the losing end. Okay, it would have been great for those guys to have won something.
Well, they're my pick. They're my pick along with Cincinnati to win the East. We'll see what happens there. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, the one and only Anthony Merced is going to drop us some serious knowledge. Anthony is going to, he's been taking notes. This whole thing has been handling and everything else. And of course, if you guys have questions on the live audience to ask Anthony, please do chime in. But first, here's some final scores of Week 27 of Major League Soccer. Okay. Of course, as you know, the summer blockbuster is about to happen on Saturday. Of course, Anthony Merced and everyone else is going to be there, probably watching it on the on his couch. Well, one of us is actually going to be live. One of us is going to be watching on the couch. But before that, Anthony Merced, of course, over in the Red Bull, New York, of course, UK, has been keeping his ear on everything that's been happening on both sides of the Atlantic, of course. And he's got some stuff that, he's got some goodies to drop you guys, of course, naturally for us and the live audience. Miguel, I know you got some burning questions to ask this man since the last time. So I'm going to let you go at it. I'm going to just step aside and just deal with the carnage.
Oh, goodness. Here we go. I got my whiskey. I'm ready to go.
Anthony, when are the Red Bulls going to sell, Anthony? That's my main question. Please.
What do you mean? What are they going to sell?
When are they going to just get out of here and let another ownership group that wants to win, Anthony? Okay. When is that going to happen?
What is it? Okay,
It's a good question.
I'm not getting so. Okay, do you want to give me a real question, or do you want to give me the BS questions at all?
Okay, no. I'm going to give you a real question. Okay.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so then, is there anything on the horizon that you know of that this team is going to do? Like,
there's always stuff on the horizon, but do you have something specific? Like, do you want to know about? Like, what do you want to know about exactly?
I want to know if they're going to sign an actual good forward, Anthony, somebody in the middle of the park who's creative, things like that. Is Mr. Troy Lezane, are they looking at him to be the not the interim manager? Is he going to get the job next year? What have you heard in regards?
So starting with Troy,
Okay.
the best thing I could say about Troy is that his future is in his own hands. I would say that if this team makes the playoffs, he has made a really good case for himself to have the interim tag removed and remain for at least one season as head coach for this team, if he can get them there. So I think that he has done a very admirable job compared to where this team was when he took over. They were a team that had a lot of turmoil internally. That is gone now. From training and from a lot of the things that I've seen, they are very much dedicated to making the playoffs. If he doesn't make the playoffs, there are a lot of directions this team could go. Look, they could go those directions even if they do make the playoffs and make a first round exit. There's a perception that Red Bull is sitting somewhere looking at Leipzig, and every now and then a red phone rings from New York and they just ignore the call. That isn't true. That's not what happens. There are issues within the league that keep them from doing what they do. There are issues with how they run in Europe that just doesn't mesh here. There's also issues for the fact that this team for a lot of years has been, 15 years ago, blamed for how they did business in a way that now other teams do business now. So there's all kinds of things there that say, here's the one thing I will say. Red Bull doesn't care whether you like how they do business. The one thing you cannot accuse them of doing is not trying to do business. They may not do it. They may not execute properly. The one thing you cannot accuse them of is not caring.
Anthony, Garry Mina's brother doesn't do it for me. Okay, that transfer is just like, I just throw my hands up in the air. Now, how do you explain that there's no issues with other teams in the league? Inter Miami. Well,
you want to know? Wait, hold on.
Go ahead. Because
Miami did their business.
I'm not even talking about us signing somebody like Inter Miami. No. I'm talking like us signing maybe somebody like that guy Zelarayan, who just went to Saudi Arabia.
Zelarayan was signed during the allocation order, which is gone now. So we have not had a full year yet without the allocation order really messing with things. Remember, so Ali Curtis, when he was the sporting director of the New York Red Bulls, I knew the MLS playbook so well that he was able to do weird things to be able to get them up the allocation order to where they got Sasha Kljestan. They have, since Ali Curtis has left, and you could blame Jesse Marsch for that. You could blame whoever you want. I know that this fan base loves Jesse Marsch, but Jesse Marsch, I will say this now, left this team in a worse scenario than he arrived in. That you could say that now the team can do more the way that they want to operate. And by now, I mean since the beginning of this year when things like the allocation order disappeared and things like that. So earlier, I heard you guys talking about like Messi was shopped around or whatever. He wasn't shopped around. They did their normal thing where they went through the quote unquote allocation order and knowing that teams were going to say no because they had to. Eventually got to where he was, because he was going to refuse New York. He was going to refuse Toronto. He had a home in Miami for like the last 5 years. We've known that this was going to happen. So it was literally a cursory, like, do you, but please say no. Okay. You know, like it was one of those, right? If you want the Red Bulls are not going to go and sign Mbappe tomorrow. There were rumors about Neymar because of his association with Red Bull. MLS doesn't want Neymar, so that wasn't going to happen. So there are moves that will happen eventually, hopefully, that will be ones that fit what this team wants to do. But they're moving in a direction that is not what it was in 2012. And it's one that what Inter Miami is doing now is the direction that the Red Bulls were moving in 2012. They've moved past that because the league slapped them for doing that. And now they're moving in a direction that the league wanted them to do, which is creating the future of the U.S. men's national team, whether it be Tyler Adams or it be Danny Edelman or pick whoever, Aaron Long, all these guys that have gone to the World Cup that have worn the Red Bull badge. That's what this league wanted them to do. Is it winning in MLS? No, not yet. It isn't. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't know. But one thing we do know about Red Bull is that they will try to adapt and they will try to win. Will it work? I don't know. We'll just have to watch and see.
Okay, question coming up, of course, for Vincent Escobar. He's asking, should we expect a rebuild roster in the winter? And if so, can we expect the terms of signings and outgoings? Based on what I've heard, Vincent, that's going to happen this offseason. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, so it depends on what you think about rebuild. So, like, is it going to be a complete out? Like, there are some guys whose contracts are coming up. Amir Fernandez is one of them. There are guys who will more than likely be moved on. I know Danny Edelman has expressed his interest in going overseas. I don't know if he's quite ready yet. It might be another year. So Andres Reyes is another one who's expressed interest in going overseas. He has gotten interest overseas. So I think there will be a rebuild in some key areas. I think they're still trying to look for the spine of the team, a number 10, a number 9, obviously, and probably that one lockdown defender that can stand right next to Sean Nealis. So in that sense, yes, there will be significant names coming in, whether they be noticeable or not in the next year. Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions that keep it coming up, it's something that Miguel and I had talked about before we even went on air, was Jochen Schneider and his role. Okay. And of course, Dennis Hamlet and his role. I've always said this more than once. We're probably the only team that has the following individuals. We have a head of sport, and of course, we have a sporting director, 2 guys that are basically doing the same job for one team. If that's not confusion, I don't know what is. So what I've been hearing here and there is Schneider's looking elsewhere to another club, which might bring some smiles to a lot of people's faces. Another one happens to hear where Mr. Hamlet maybe exit stage right. So am I close to that assessment or am I way off?
I think there's definitely redundancies. I think you're definitely right in seeing that. Hamlet, for a few years, I can't remember the guy's name before I apologize for him, the Wolverhampton guy. Hamlet provided the guy who knew the rule book, the guy who knew the scouting for Central America and South America, whereas the European guys knew the names overseas, and that was kind of essentially the same job got cut in half. I think they're moving to a point now where they don't necessarily need that anymore. I can see Hamlet not being around next season, but he has been useful to this club in the past. I know some people don't think that. He has been useful to the club, and we all know that despite what Kaku might have said, Dennis Hamlet was proven to not be incompetent in that scenario.
He was
Gio.
The
guy from Wolves, that guy's name was Kevin Thelwell. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I forgot his name. Yeah, he was one of those COVID guys that we never got to meet him in person. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a chance of Barlow being promoted as a hot vendor.
Yeah, like a hot dog vendor, I guess. A hot dog vendor.
Okay.
Look, here's the one thing I'm gonna say about Tom Barlow, and and the fans can knock him all they want. That's fine. Corey Burke is not injured. He's not the guy they go to on Sunday. Like there's a really, really big lack of depth in that position. Van Zier comes out early. There's no one they can go to. I mean, they needed a body there, and that's just what it was. What are you gonna do?
The next man up. I mean, this is the mentality of that team, and unfortunately, it's basically by happenstance that you happen to have a roster that unfortunately dangerously thin in certain areas, most of it basically on the injury reserve. And the other, of course, is, well, okay, this is with the guy that we got, at the time. The one question that I have, Anthony, and this is something we talked about lots of times in the press box about the general idea of Red Bull and their direction. I'm going to rewind the clock back to 2017, 2016, 2017, 2018. This was a team where the team was on the rise. This was a resurgence. No one wasn't talking about Red Bull out back then. Okay, it calmed down. They were before that. They were before that. Okay, they were before that, and everything was clicking nicely. So what happened? I always felt that things really started going downhill the minute Jesse Marsch hopped on the plane from Philly, and it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah, every team has a 5-year window, and this is in most sports, right? So that 2015 team that they put together and then augmented with some really great signings in 2016, they had their window. And you could argue that when Dax left, that was the beginning of the end of that. And they weren't able to cash in. There was the 2015 year where they won the Supporter Shield and got knocked out in the conference finals. There was 2018, run into Atlanta. There's always something that they run into in those years, and it didn't materialize for them. And when you got to 2019, you started to see the cracks in that. And it became time for another rebuild. Now they've been able to make the playoffs. They've been able to do good runs in the Open Cup since then. But now they're in that next mode of a next big rebuild. To be fair to them, they thought Kaku was that guy, wasn't it? They've had a lot of swings and misses lately. Klamala, Fletcher, I think we're reaching
that kid that they signed a $2 million contract with.
Yeah, there was I mean, there were a lot of misses, in that. So I think that we're in the point now where they're back to the drawing board with trying to build the new spine of the team and trying to figure out what that's going to be. I don't know if Lewis Morgan's part of that. I think they thought that he would be after how great he was last season. We now have an entire injury-riddled year where you have a really big question mark around him. So it's going to be interesting to see, but that's kind of that's where we are. We're in that rebuild now.
And one of the things that annoy me a little bit when I've always said that, if nothing else, at least be a little honest with the fan base. You wouldn't have all this acrimony and people just turning off in the Red Bull. If you just be a little honest with them and tell them, look, okay, things aren't so hot right now, but we're working on a plan. And
here's the thing. Like, what is not so hot?
what's not so hot? Well,
like they're not Chicago.
No,
you know
they're
what I
not.
mean?
They're not. Okay,
they're not writing a letter. Like 2 years ago, right? The New York Rangers, great example.
Right.
2 years ago, the New York Rangers decided, you know what, they were going to tank the rest of the year. Wrote a letter to their fans. They didn't make the playoffs when they did that. This team is on a 12-year run of making the playoffs, where anything can happen in MLS when you make the playoffs. So
it's the making the playoffs trophy. Okay. Just like, my team Arsenal used to get the 4th place trophy. Okay. It's just like that. Have we won anything? We've won nothing. Okay.
You won 2
I'm thinking that's part of the problem, Miguel. Not to upset you. I'm thinking that's part of the problem. A lot of folks are just opposing your EPL side with an MLS side. I hate to say this. Arsenal will never be, Red Bulls will never be Arsenal. It's not going to happen.
They're Everton.
They're
Everton.
Then, I mean,
no, they're not.
My point
I'm going to tell you something.
Why in the world are we comparing these sides? Okay,
no, you can't.
Obviously, one has a hell of a lot more resources and people, and people to get things done. And we have an MLS side that, on a good day, maybe, they just fired their strength and conditioning coach.
Garry,
okay, not recently because of all these injuries. Someone had to take a hit on that. But
Garry, the main reason why you can't compare the Red Bulls to any EPL side is because the Red Bulls will never be relegated, Garry. So
oh God, the relegation.
That's why
I can't.
That's why there's no danger of relegation.
There's a danger of not making the playoffs.
There's your relegation.
Playoffs is American relegation.
Listen, there's your relegation.
So what? No, it's not. Please do not say that. Take that back. Come on.
No,
it's not American relegation.
It is.
Okay. I'll let you continue.
As you like to say, I don't make the rules. Okay, I don't make the rules.
You're gonna have to take that back. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
But on the serious tip, though, back to why fans feel that this team is a lot worse than it is because they're used to. How should I put this? They're used to a standard, and that standard is that we make the playoffs over time. We make we buy expensive players. We're making an attempt to tell the fan base, we are going for it. MLS Cup or bust, like Miguel has on his label. You don't see that now.
In jest, okay, thank you.
Okay, but you don't see that now. You don't see the word I like to use. The word I like to use is ambition. Now, after their rivals winning an MLS Cup, that just juiced it up even further. They got a cup, we don't. Okay, but I want to tell those fans that like to point to that star. There were no superstars on that roster. There really weren't on the NYCFC roster, and they took advantage of it. They took advantage. They were a good side. What they were was a good team, and they were healthy at the right moment and took on the team that for some reason thought, hey, let's all go to someone else's house during the pandemic.
Garry, they had key players.
I mean,
Tati Castellano, Maxi Morales. They had a team that had been together for several years.
Exactly. They had a core that's been together for 5 or 6 years. None of
they had
guys
players who could play. They had players. They had players who could play.
I'm not disagreeing with you. All those persons, all those players that you just named were ballers. Okay? Every single one of them were ballers. Okay? They weren't household names. They weren't superstars, but they were ballers. And this is the argument that I always made about the Red Bulls until the day I die. You're trying to tell me that you can't get any of those guys? We're not looking for household names. Give me a good crew.
Please. Preach, Garry, preach.
Okay? I am sick and tired of this team getting their asses kicked from some dude on the depth chart.
But here's the thing, right? Like, so I have this argument with my wife a lot. She's a Mets fan, and I have this with her a lot too. I go, even when you have those guys, something happens where they do the dumb thing. Henry doesn't take the free kick and hands it to Roy Miller. Like, there's like some of those things. Like, even when you have the players, Alex Mule decides to run in front of the goalkeeper. Like, these things, for some reason, haunt this team, and it happens. NYCFC had all of it. You're right. They had ballers. They had everything right. You know what else they had on their side? The luck that could carry them through.
Bingo.
And that has been the bad luck that this team has faced.
Bingo. Everybody forgot how, everybody forgot about Philadelphia. Philadelphia had, New England, you know who then they knocked out? New England, who had probably one of the best seasons in decades. Ever. Yeah. They were a machine. Okay. Everybody penciled those guys in as the finalists of MLS Cup. What happened? They starved that team for 21 days until they were ice cold. And then they decided to play NYCFC, and they couldn't get their engine started once they stopped, and they got kicked.
And they were missing 7 starters due to COVID as well.
Yeah, but who told them to go out and freaking to somebody's party?
Right.
Okay? That's their fault.
Exactly. But you can't blame
It's
City.
what it is.
It is what it is. You can't blame City for that. They took advantage of that. If it would have been us, it would have been if it would have been the Red Bulls doing the same thing City did, there would have been no end to the conspiracy-led arguments. None. Okay? None. Okay? But we got a star over our crest. That's all that matters, right? If that's all that matters, they got theirs. We didn't get ours. The only difference is they did everything right. They took advantage of an opportunity. They ran with it and won. We haven't had that opportunity.
Here's the one thing I will say about this team, because there's a lot of
Big difference.
They don't play good football. They don't do a lot of this. Yes, they don't. But here's the one thing they are. They are tied for the best defensive record in the league. If they can, that is something that I want going into knockout games. If you have that kind of defense, when they lost in Leagues Cup, they played great. That was great knockout football, not entertaining.
85 minutes, football. Right? For 85 minutes.
Yeah. So what you want is them to figure out how to get a guy to put the ball in the back of the net in the moments. Like, for instance, yesterday, Cameron Harper had a really great chance in the second half.
Please.
Couldn't get that done. What you want to teach a guy like that to do for this season is to make it count, so that you can make sure that happens. The truth is, this is a MLS top tier defense that you have to figure out the offense for. If they do get in, look, with that defense, anything can happen.
Listen, also, if Dante Van Zier scores that opportunity that he got against Philly, we're up 2-0, okay?
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be the guy, okay? He's not supposed to be Barlow and any other guys.
I've seen players who made more money than him botch it. I've seen guys on your side had opportunities to score.
And let me tell you something. We would have hosted FC Messi here, and I could have got a few more of these. Okay, thank you. All right.
Bottle it. I mean, remember what I told you last season when Arsenal was up in the lead for a while? I said City was coming. Don't bottle it.
Everybody knew it. I knew it. I knew it. It was like
coming.
Arsenal does not have the depth.
Y'all had to win just 3 games to keep those guys quiet. You lost them. Okay,
that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, okay? But on the serious tip, that's what I want this organization to do. I want this organization to start being honest with your fan base. It's nice to offer them, practices and talk and sign and stuff. The players love that type of stuff. But you know what a dedicated fan base like to have? Transparency. Okay. My thing is this. If you held like a virtual town hall where you basically tell them, okay, here's our plan. We know things are not up to your standard. not necessarily our standard, your standard. Okay, you want us to win. I know that that brings a giggle, but it's let you hear me out for a second. But we have a plan to fix that. We have a plan to make that change. We heard your complaints. I don't think you're going to get much, I don't think you're going to get that much of, an apathy that you have now. And the reason for that is because the fans feel somewhat disconnected on their club. And I hate to say this, with any soccer team in the world, you can't have that. You can't have that at all. Even when it comes down to player signings. Yes, Red Bull is notorious of keeping things close to the vest. But for goodness sake, at least you can tell them, hey, we got a couple of targets that we're looking at. Hopefully we can bring them in. If they don't make it, we'll let you know. Instead of this ridiculous guesswork that you have to resort to some random guy out on Twitter saying, hey, Red Bull's out there signing a guy, and it doesn't lead to nothing. That's infuriating, at least to them. Plus,
don't believe Twitter.
Yeah. Don't. I mean, I tell folks, I tell people, I tell people that all the time. Unless this dude is presented with a shirt, don't believe the hype.
Listen, Gary,
Don't.
I'm sure Yerry Mina's brother is going to be great. And I can't wait for them to sign the next Drew Yearwood. Okay? Thank you.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, it all goes down to the organization. I mean, that's the thing about, I remember with, I can't forget the guy's, I can't even remember his name. Anyway, he told me about this about Major League Soccer back then. He said, every team is virtually the same. He said, regardless of what you heard, regardless of what you read, every team is virtually the same. The only difference is the organization. That's it. Okay. And our organization, for lack of a better word, and I don't mean to be harsh, is clueless and confused and organizationally stupid. Okay. They can't get out of their own way. This is by far was the number one thing that's held this team back, that's held this organization back. They should be better than what they are right now. And that is an indictment I'm going to let them stink on, I'm going to slap on, and they're going to, until they can take it off, find a way to get it off. Because if you can't, then for God's sake, get somebody else who can. Get an organization who can, because these fans certainly deserve better. They don't even have to do a thing, gentlemen. Not a thing. They followed this team home on the road. They've done all the things to support this franchise. It's about time they get their moments in the sun. And right now, there's only a group of people that can get it done, or they don't. Before we end things, oh, by the way, looks like that Red Bull 2 knocked off, looks like they have beaten Atlanta United 2 by a score of 4-2. One of the players that I'm taking a closer look at, Anthony, is Kasule. This dude is hot. Okay, he's basically scoring a goal a game. How soon do you think that this guy should be come up in the first team without screwing up that team?
Yeah, so here's the deal. And I think that people think of this like baseball a little bit, and I think they don't understand quite how it works. When the MLS transfer window closes, you can't move those players up and down. So and again, I don't know when that is. I think we might already be past it for that. And I don't know if he can be loaned up or not, but I also think that clocks start ticking with unions and things like that. So unless there's an intention on actually playing him, he'll stay there for the time being. And I know that Corey Burke, we saw him at the stadium over the weekend. He looks pretty close to being back. So if he's going to be pretty close to being back, I don't think we're going to see any of the two kids coming up for the rest of the season.
By the way, their next game is versus the Chicago Fire. They will be at home on August 27th. That match will take place at 7 p.m. Meanwhile, in the NWSL circuit. The reason why you haven't heard anything from our good friends with Gotham FC, remember they're sitting very nicely at third place. They will be playing also on August 27th at Red Bull Arena versus Racing Louisville at Red Bull Arena. That game kickoff time is at 5:30 p.m. So if you are just about fed up with the first team, if you feel that way, you can always go down to check out New York Red Bull 2. They are in playoff range right now. They are the fourth best team in the Eastern Conference. And New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC, they're in third place in the league right now, 1 point behind the Carolina Courage for second place in the league, and their game is at Red Bull Arena at 5:30. So go down and check out there. One last thing before we all depart. Of course, Anthony, here's the part where you tell the entire audience, this is the glass breaker. It's, glass breaking sound in the background. Tell them what, tell us what they don't know recently about the Red Bulls and, of course, Red Bull Global in general.
Yeah, so the big news is pretty much, I guess, I don't know if very many people know this, but about 4 or 5 months ago, Dietrich Mateschitz died, who was essentially the head of Red Bull, period, of everything. And things have been divvied up. And there's now I'll just use the term beverage side, and there's a sporting side. And then there's an umbrella that falls down from there. And one of the names that falls under the soccer side of things is Mario Gomez, former Bayern Munich name. And he has taken a very big liking to the New York Red Bulls and also to, Leipzig in general. And there's going to be a lot of interesting things that happen for that. I'm not going to say that they're all going to be exactly what people want. I don't think Mario Gomez is going to show up and be like, hey, we're signing, I'm just going to use that. They're not going to go sign Vinicius Jr. tomorrow or anything like that. But there's going to be a lot more of a direction. Now, the other thing that goes with that is this whole synergy thing that everybody's been talking about for years between all these teams doesn't exist, and it won't exist. They are separate teams, and they will continue to be separate teams. And we saw that with Gerhard Struber going from essentially New York to Austria. People have similar Rolodexes, but aside from that, these teams are completely separate and they do completely separate business, especially here in the United States. There will be, and again, I can't go into too big of specifics without giving away my sources. There will be significant changes to this team in the coming years. But it will be very exciting, and hopefully it'll be what fans want and lead to trophies.
Wow. That's definitely a mouthful. Let's turn our focus one last time to Inter Miami. I'm going to start with you, Miguel. What do you think is going to be the final score? Is the walkout out the club finally going to happen for this team, or do you think it's going to be significantly closer?
Well, you know what? The only reason why it may be significantly closer would be if Lionel Messi does not play, there's a very good chance that he's not going to play. He's going to play. He's going to play in the he's going to play in the U.S. Open Cup
right?
Yeah. So then he might get arrested on for the game on the weekend against us, which I don't care because I've sold my tickets. Okay? And you know what? It would be better for us if he doesn't play because we'd have a chance. Okay, because up to now, Gary, when he's been on the field, it's been like the Harlem Globetrotters against the Washington Generals. Okay,
what are you looking at as the final score?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we couldn't. We're gonna lose. I don't know about the final score. We're gonna lose. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Me, I'm betting on the Red Bull defense here, and this is my reason why. This team is, how should I put it? They play down to their opponents sometimes, a la DC United, but when they face a team that is more superior for some dumb reason, and I don't know why, they tend to step up and stack up against that squad. Do they win in most cases or not? Not really. You've seen this, Miguel, but somehow I like how this defense is playing. Okay. Plus, this team happens to be resilient. So it goes by, okay, what, Lionel Messi, if he plays, well, there's not going to be a chance in hell they'll win. But if he doesn't, I like our chances. I'm going to say, give or take, it's going to be a draw, 2-2. And the reason why I say that is because although, we don't know who's going to be up front to score goals and stuff like that, I'm still looking at this team's defense, and I'm talking Inter Miami. They're not that great, okay? They really aren't. If you can somehow get past their midfield, if you can even get past their goaltender, you got to keep it close. But if you let Messi run around all over the place in that pitch, this is going to be a long day, long evening for New York. Anthony, you got the last word here.
Yeah, so before I say that, there's some breaking news. Portland Timbers have parted ways with Gio Savarese.
Ooh.
So he is former...
He's available, okay?
He's available.
Former Metro Star, great, and also former New York Cosmos head coach. So the Portland Timbers have parted ways with him. I just wanted to say that real quick because news broke just now. I see this as... I go with the same thing as Garry, a draw, but I would say it's 1-1. I think that maybe they'll have a magic Messi moment, but I think that won't be enough for Miami to get the win.
There we go. Man, this is good. It's gonna. You know what I'm really looking forward to? Here's the thing. For those of you who didn't know, because of the media request naturally for such an international superstar, all the folks like yours truly had to reapply, and I'm a seasoned credential, so I had to actually reapply. I think I did, and then Anthony saw my name pop in, so we'll see what happens at that if you're able to go. But regardless of whether they're or not, it's going to be a very interesting event. Folks are already bracing for impact. This is going to be a zoo. If you're going to the game, for those who didn't sell your ticket, go early. And I'm dead serious about that. You're going to be running into a lot more Messi fans. Your path trains and roads are going to be packed with, a lot of pink wearing shirts, except for the South Ward. They've already made the notice clear that if anybody get caught wearing the pink jersey in the South Ward, they're going to get ejected. I'd like to see how they're going to actually pull that off. But I'm hoping it's not going to be something that we've seen where it gets too violent, whatever the case may be. I'm hoping that's the case. But, of course, there's going to be more to follow. Saturday is the date. Kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. If you're not going to be there, of course, naturally, it will be on Apple TV. Not sure why it wouldn't be on any of the major networks because it is supposed to be a major event, Messi in New York. And look at it this way. It's like it's not playing in Yankee Stadium. But, hey, if there's one – I have to agree with Mark Fishkin. This is where the boys can really use your support because past all the glitz, the glamour, and the nonsense, there's a game that the Red Bulls need to have in order to stay within the playoff hunt. Remember, if they draw this game, they're not out of it mathematically, but if they lose, it takes a major league hit. So, yeah, they can certainly use their support for this match, and I hope those who didn't sell their tickets show up in force. So our thanks, of course, to Anthony Merced. As always, I guess we're going to see you next month where we have more videos to drop by. Miguel, the circus is coming, bro. You ready for this or what?
Sure, I'll be watching from the comfort of my couch, Garry. Okay, thank you.
Of course, but I'll be there with the thick of it about everything else. Always remember, folks, that the podcast, of course, this is our live show. The replay will be on Spotify and, of course, on our YouTube channel the very next day. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions and everything else, rbdgthepodcast.com. RGD podcast@gmail.com is our email address. Feel free to drop in the letter and tell us how well we did, and more importantly, what we need to work on. So that's it for this evening, boys and girls. Saturday's going to be fun. Let's see if the Red Bulls can able to survive. For Miguel Nunez and Anthony Merced, this is Garry Redmond. Thank you guys so much. Episode 84 is now come to a close. We'll see you next week. Till then, good night for now.